Hey there YouTube, welcome back. It's the next day and we are doing part 3 of my look through the 3rd British Infantry Division. So starting up, we're on to the next. So this is actually the final brigade, and it's the 1st Hanoverian Brigade, and it's led by a Major General Count Kyle Marnsege. I'm probably butchering that. But this is the figure that I decided upon using as to represent him. It's a Warlord colonel, mounted colonel from the Waterloo, from their Waterloo pack, and it's an okay figure. It's nothing super special, but it's quite a nice figure. And again, maybe in the future I'll be swapping them out. And perhaps this guy could be like an ADC or something, but he'll do for now. So that is the commander of the brigade. Put him to the side. And we'll start with the first unit, and we'll just bring them into shot. I have obviously done a video on these guys, and although I'll give you a fairly good look at them, if you want like real details, obviously go back to that video. These guys are the Duke of York's 1st Field Battalion, and they have actually got. Let me just look on the bottom of the base here because I've got all the information. They're also known as the Onsbrook Field Battalion, and there's their commanding officer, Major Baron Bulow. Now, when I decided to do these chaps, it was a kind of a sort of a whim, really. I'd just finished. I think I'd finished my British battalion, and I was looking to do the next. And originally I did the original field battalion, so the Verdun and the Bremen, and I was obviously these guys were the next down the list, and I really had to do a little bit of internet research and found out that they were actually like green jacketed, and then after a little bit more dilly-dallying, I finally came down with my plan of making them out of as many salvaged Warlord figures and mixed them with a few Victrix, and actually getting a hold of a front rank command pack to use for them. And something that I had to specifically get was that this particular field battalion liked to wear their flat caps. So I thought I would model them all with flat caps. So I had to obviously order a specific flat capped command group. Now, when those guys came through, I'd actually accidentally ordered the normal Hanoverian command pack, and so that meant that some of them were in flat caps, but a lot of them were in Shakos. So that kind of put a little bit of a spanner in the works. So even though I think I was like probably about halfway through the battalion, and then I had to put them aside, and I actually started working on putting together the 2nd Brigade of Green Jacketed Troops, which are called the Grubenhagen Field Battalion. So both of those units were kind of done almost sort of side by side, in a sort of a little bit of a mass confusion. But basically, going into this, back to the Duke of York's, these guys were originally a red-coated regular line infantry unit, and they became light before Waterloo, but at the time of Waterloo they actually had kind of reverted back to being, as far as their use on the battlefields, more or less like a line battalion again, but they did retain their green jackets. And the main difference being is that these guys, even though they've got the green jackets, have retained their white strapping, where most of the rifle-based light battalions tended to go for black strapping. So that is why when I was trying to find flags for them. I finally decided upon getting this blue flag, the Blue Facings Regiment flag from GMB, because obviously historically there's actually no evidence of Hanoverian battle flags. So they're all, you know, any company that produces one, it's all kind of speculation, and not actually, obviously there's no evidence to actually sort of collaborate against it. So I'm pretty happy with the choice of flags for these guys. I really do like the Hanoverian colours here, and I probably will in the future. If I just grab one of my I call these guys my guest Hanoverian units, because chances are I'll probably attach these guys to them, and I'll show them properly a little bit later on. But this is one of my original Hanoverian Landswehr units, and they're Warlord flags, and you can see that Warlord have gone for a sort of a flag similar to the King's colours, which a lot of sort of you know, even though there's no like scientific evidence of which exact colours Hanoverians carried, some people, some of the more beardy people out there, you know, basically had heart attacks when I first posted up some pictures of these guys, and really gave me a bit of a hard time about using these flags. And you know, I just said to myself, well, you know, there's chances are, yeah, they may not have been looked exactly like that, but you know, there was nothing for me to replace them with, and I'm not just going to have empty flags. So, you know, they did the job at the time, and maybe in the future, like I say, I'll update them to these flags, which I think look really cool. But of course, that's a little bit of an investment, because obviously you'd have to buy a full pack of 2 flags, but only actually need 1. I don't think you can actually get. I think you can get the Griffhorn battalion from GMB, but I don't think you can get the PNA. So yeah, that's going off the point a little bit, but back to these guys. So yeah, so these guys are made up of, like I say, just about every scavenged plastic Warlord figure and Hanoverian head that I could find left over from my Waterloo box set, and my 1 box of Hanoverians that I brought on their own. And I really am. They really are one of my favourite units. Both of the 2 green jacketed Hanoverian units. They're definitely up there in some of my favourite units. So that is the 1st Duke of York's, or the Duke of York's 1st Field. I'll just move those chaps out of the way. Oh, I did forget to mention that these guys also have 4 Metal Perry's guys in. And there's a funny story about these guys. I actually ordered them by accident. When I was originally looking for figures for this particular battalion, for some bizarre reason, these guys were listed as suitable for the Bremen and Verdun units, because obviously they all have, like the flank companies have these birds' nests, and so I basically thought, for some reason, I thought it was a command squad. So I thought, wow, you know, they've actually got like an actual command squad sculpted for these guys. So I picked them up, and when they came, they were literally just these bog standard troops. So I was kind of so in the end, I ended up just putting them into my battalions. But yeah, I believe there's just those 4 that are actually metal. All the rest, apart from the command, the colour party, are actually, and the drummer, of course, are which were front rank, are all plastic, either Warlord or 1 or 2 Victrix snuck in as well, just to fill up numbers. So let's get these guys out of the way now. Okay, let's see what's next. Next up we have the Grubenhagen Field Battalion. So we'll bring those guys in. There we go. Again, these guys are the Grubenhagen Field Battalion, and again we have that similar problem of they should have a bugler and they've got a drummer, but again I think that drummer looks so cool that I'll probably just keep him as he is. I think I don't know why, but I guess it's just the way the white pops off the green, and I gave both of them. Did I give the other battalion? No, I gave these guys a black faced drum as well to make them look even cooler. And of course, I did actually copy across the red facings that the bugler would normally have. So yeah, these guys are the Grubenhagen Field Battalion, and these guys were actually used as a light company during Waterloo. I did give them colours because you know, these guys, the way that the light companies of Hanoverians go, they're not quite the same as like a regular light battalion. And like I say, their flank companies, they didn't really have them. They kind of had so many riflemen per company of normal troops. But just the way that I've done it, basically all of them would have, or at least the ones in the flank companies would have bird nests on their shoulders. Everyone else would have, you know, none as a normal battalion, but every battalion would have, or every company would have an allotment of riflemen in, and as well as some smaller flank companies of rifles at the back. And these guys are made up of, I think, the dregs of warlord figures that I'd found, and probably mostly Victrix after that. I'm just having a feel around to see if there's some metal figures in here. I think there's possibly a couple, as well as obviously a front rank command group. And again, these guys, as you can see, they've all got Shakos on. This is the command pack that I originally ordered for by accident for my Duke of Yorks, and when these guys came, I was sort of frantically hunting around what to do with them, and then I found out that the Grubenhagen did actually wear Shakos predominantly in their sort of general uniform. So, especially the command groups anyway. Most of the foot troops again tended to wear a mixture of flat caps and Shakos, and I think I've put that into the army in the fact that there are groups of Shakos and flat caps mixed throughout the army. And here you can see a classic example of 3 Victrix figures and 1 warlord guy there, and again they scale up quite well. So that is the Grubenhagen Field Battalion, and you can see that for these chaps I went for this was another little bit of a dilemma I had when I came to find flags for these chaps. I really didn't know what to get. Originally I was when I was doing some internet research on these guys, I found out that after Waterloo these chaps were dissolved and more or less became part of the Hoya Field Battalion. So originally I was going to thinking about giving them like Hoya flags, which are black as well. And then I just by fluke, when they came with a second set of flags, of which the actual, I think when you bought the pack, you get like the colours, and you get two other. Is it? Yeah, I think you get two other flags, and one's the black facing one, and one's the Hoya. So I went for the black facing flag, and I think it turned out really cool in the end. I mean, it's more or less just the same as the Duke of York's flag, but it's just literally all black rather than blue. So I was really happy with the way that these guys turned out. And like I say, this particular unit and my and the Duke of Yorks are some of my favourite battalions in my entire army, just because I think they look so cool. So that is the Grubenhagen Field Battalion. Next up, we'll start going into the two battalions that are in red jackets, and we'll start off. Let's just make sure we've got it in. Yeah, we'll start off with I believe these guys are the Bremen. So we have the Bremen Field Battalion, and we'll bring those chaps in. Oh, I'll bang the camera. Here we go. So here we have the Bremen Field Battalion using Warlord flags because I think they're great. Again, they've obviously got this colour here, but I don't think it makes too much difference. It's the fact that they carry sort of stylised flags. I think it makes them a little bit more unique, but still sort of ties them together because they do kind of have similar coats of arms on. The main difference between these guys are the fact that they've actually got these blue trousers, which is quite odd. Apparently these guys again were at one point a light battalion, and they basically became, as far as being used in the battlefield, a regular field battalion. And these guys are mainly made up of, I believe, Vectrix. And the command group is, it looks like it's this particular chap here is actually a Paris from a Hanoverian command group, and I put him in because he's got a rifle. And the main bulk of the command group is front rank again. So here's the command group. And you can tell by the motif for all the badge on their shakos that they're Hanoverian. And obviously these guys don't have the rifle badge on their shakos, where the light battalions would. But obviously you can't get regular figures with rifle badges on their shakos, and I believe that most of them are covered anyway. So. But of course these chaps, they've got a fair share of covered shakos, but they do have uncovered shakos too. You can see that they do have a green plume on their hats, and that, I suppose that comes from their sort of light company heritage. And you can see that I've given these guys another uber cool black drum face to make them look more snazzy. So yeah, that's the Bremen Field Battalion. Again, really enjoyed these guys. I think they're cool. I think I suppose you could say that I do have definitely a little bit of favouritism towards my Hanoverians, because I think it was the first battalion that really came out living up to my expectations, and it was basically after these guys when my sort of level of painting really satisfied my needs, and that's, I suppose that's part of the reason why eventually I went back through all my early units and did a lot of modifications on them to try and get them a little bit more up to standard. So next up we have the final actual battalion that I have in this brigade, and that is the Verdun battalion. or the 3rd Field Battalion. And these chaps more or less look like regular British troops. Bring them in. Oh, what's that? Oh, backpack came off. That's the only trouble with the Victrix backpacks, is the fact that they're hollow here, so you don't get much of a connection point. But these guys are plastic, so at least it should stick on a little bit easier than trying to stick plastic backpacks onto metal guys, like I was doing on my rifleman. So I'll just quickly do a field repair on this particular guy, because otherwise I'll mislay the backpack, and I really don't want to do that. There we go. Oh, it's actually that chap it came off. Here we go. You can see this guy, the drummer for these guys, looks more or less normal. They have green facings, and he's just simply got a red tunic and white lacing. These guys, obviously because they're a line battalion, mainly have shakos on. Just bring them a bit into shot. And these boys are practically all made up out of Victrix, I believe. I think this was my 2nd battalion that I made out of my Victrix box, or my Victrix boxes. And they do actually have, again, which is a little bit of a rarity, it has 3 metal command that I believe are from a Perry's pack. And this particular chap here is actually a plastic officer, and I believe he could be Victrix, because I'm quite picky about my plastic officers, and unless I really like the look of them, I tend not to use them. But the Victrix officer got the thumbs up from me, so he did have the honour of actually making it into one of my battalions. And then obviously at the back here, like I say, these 3 are Perry's. And I believe the drummer's Perry's as well. And I don't think there's... Oh, the sergeant's front rank. And I think that's it. Everyone else is Victrix. So that is the Verdun battalion. And obviously, again, using the warlord flags, which came in the Hanoverian box. I tried to get as much use out of these as possible. I don't think there's any other companies that make this particular flag. So I was more than happy to use the warlord flags. And this particular, I'll keep forgetting to show you the commanding officers. So we have a Major de Schop in charge of these boys. And if we just quickly go back to the other units, the Duke of York's Field Regiment has Major Baron Bülow. The Grubenhagen have Lieutenant Colonel Warm, and the Verdun have a Lieutenant Colonel Langrelia. So quite a mouthful of names there. We'll move these chaps on, and we'll move on to the next 2 battalions, which are actually guest units that, because they're Hanoverians, I'll probably attach them to this division, or this brigade, sorry. And use them as part of this brigade. And obviously the only unit that's actually missing from this particular battalion is the 2 companies of Jaegers, which are basically green jacketed troops again. And I didn't really, for literally just having a couple of stands of them, I don't think it was worth it at the time to actually try and create them. I mean, theoretically, I could make them up out of a couple of units of my 95th, perhaps, because I think the only difference would be that they literally have a white stripe on their cuffs, where the Jaegers wouldn't. They'd have completely black cuffs. So here's the first guess unit. This is my the PNA Landswehr Battalion, and they are the second unit I ever did, and they have the information on the bottom here. So the PNA Battalion, these guys are actually from the 5th Hanoverian Brigade, from the 5th Infantry Division, and they're led by a Major Westphalen. But obviously they're being attached to the 3rd British Infantry Division for this, as far as my army is concerned. Obviously all of these chaps are Warlord. You can tell it's an old unit because they don't have a second officer. I have a trooper at the back there. And also I believe there's no sergeant figure in this particular battalion too. Oh yes, there is. He's over here. So you can tell again it's an old unit because my sergeant's out of place. I like to normally have my sergeant in the up here. I suppose that's something that I could perhaps do. Could perhaps move them across if because they're on MDF bases. I found, oh actually no, this is on those Warlord bases. I found that plastic figures, when you stick them down, actually he's a metal figure, but the plastic guy on the other base would be nigh impossible to actually get off, because obviously because it's plastic against plastic, it really does bond on. And I've had some real trouble getting plastic figures off of normal bases, although because this is actually MDF I might be lucky, so I might be able to do that swap at some point. It's probably something I am going to do. And the other thing you notice about a lot of my really early units is that obviously the flank company's problem, and I believe this is one that's actually, these guys aren't too bad. They do have their birds' nests on. I did have to do a little bit of swapping around, I believe, to make them fully correct. But it's my next battalion that's still got a little overlying problems as far as flank companies go. But like I say, when I get to them, I'll go into a little bit more detail on it. But it's basically just to the point where I leave it as a nostalgia factor. But it's basically like a noob move on my part. Because when I started, I felt very on my own. I wasn't. Even though I did have a YouTube channel, it was extremely small. I think I had like maybe 20 or 30 subscribers at the time, and obviously I'd done the unit several months before I started to get my subscriber count up, and I was kind of a bit of a silent stalker. I wouldn't really answer back to comments, and I didn't really know anyone, when I first started, I did make a lot of noob mistakes because even though I knew a fair bit of sort of Napoleonic history, I've never really delved into the sort of level that you need to actually do miniatures. So I didn't really know too much about the makeup of a British battalion, and when I got to my French, it was even worse. But luckily at that point, I did have a good enough subscriber count that I basically asked for some help, and people put it down in the comments and really helped me out. But yeah, so like I say, these guys were plagued with a lot of early noob problems, which luckily I have managed to more or less 100% correct. But so yeah, that's the first sort of guest battalion, the PNA Field Landswehr Battalion, and again, I really do like those guys. So just get those out of the way, and then we're bringing the last unit for this video, and my last Hanoverian unit of this particular brigade. And these guys are the very first battalion that I ever did. These guys were all basically from my Waterloo starter set, and apart from the flags, which came from my normal Hanoverian box set, which I more or less got at the same time, specifically for the flags actually, you can you know, this particular unit was absolutely plagued with noob problems when I started. I had bird's nest guys all over the place in this this battalion, and there's still out of place figures in the flank companies now. Although obviously, because I brought a new Warlord box set, I've actually got the whole array of the little spare bird's nests that you get with the Warlord sprues, so I should be able to go in and just attach a few of these to 2 or 3 of the figures, and actually bring that up to 100% correct order. So if we bring these guys a little bit better into shot, this, like I say, this was one of my first, in fact the first unit that I ever did. And I chose these guys because I really like the flag. The Griffhorn Field Battalion, which I believe are Landswehr. Now these guys are so old school, I don't even have the commanding officer written on the bottom of the bases. So these guys, commanding officer, we'll look at my little sheet. Oh, they're not on there. They're not actually on here. So unless I look in the book, which I'm not going to be bothered. I'm not going to bother wasting time. So I don't know who the commanding officer is for this particular unit. But yeah, these were the first, the very first unit I ever did. Obviously all Warlord, including the command, and like I say, the classic old school missing second officer, and I believe this, this guy is obviously another officer that has the rare flash hands, and I think that's probably about it. Other than that, they're literally just a bog standard unit of Warlord. And there's the drummer. I believe it's a Warlord drummer. And yeah, that's the Griffhorn Battalion. And again, those guys, even though they've got some errors in the flank company still, I do have a little, special place in my heart for them, and they're definitely, I think, with all my whole lot of Hanoverians, I just have a great love for. And that is the end of this update. It's another long one at like 35 odd minutes, 35 minutes. That is the end of this particular, the last infantry battalion. I was going to tag the artillery on the end of this, but because I tagged on those 2 extra units, I'm going to add those to the next video, which will be the artillery company, or the artillery, the artillery section, the divisional artillery, sorry, and the other units that I have in my British Army that are kind of guest units, just to sort of make this into a brigade overview and a little bit of an update, army update as well. So I'll catch you in the next video. Until then, goodbye.